All right, let's get started here. So let's talk about conventional loans. That's the most popular one. And conventional is not a government loan, all right? Think of IRS, post office. Those guys aren't government. They're overseen by the government. Fannie Freddie is like the post office and IRS. It's overseen by the government, but they manage the lending portfolio in the conventional world. So Fannie and Freddie have their own set of guidelines. Both of them will have a different risk ratio, a different tolerance of what type of loan they'll accept. And when we say risk ratio, it means just a few things, right? Credit. How high is your credit score? Higher the score, the less risk. How much money do you have in the bank? After you close on this loan, how much do you have in the bank? More money in the bank, less risk. How much are you putting down? And then when this is all said and done, how much of your gross income is going towards your housing expense and overall expense, and that's debt to income. So all these things go into this risk ratio. That's an algorithm behind the scenes for Fannie and Freddie, okay? We have a front end and a back end DTI, right? Debt to income ratio. The front end is only housing, right? So mortgage, property taxes, insurance, HOA, anything that is attached, not utilities, not solar. If there's solar counts towards your front end house expense because that's attached to the home, right? We won't even get into the difference between solar and utilities and why it's attached. But so those are in the front end. The back end includes your front end plus anything on your credit report. If it shows up on your credit report, meaning credit card payments, car loans, student loans, anything of that, the monthly payment gets added to it, and that creates the back end. So if you have a 25-40 DTI, that means 25% of your gross income is going towards housing expense. 40% of your gross income goes to everything, total. And that's beautiful. Have a 25-40, you're in great financial health as a homeowner, all right? So Fannie likes you to be 35-42. That's kind of their sweet spot. 35 in housing expense, 42 overall. There's no risk in there. So if you have a 680 credit score, if you have money in the bank, they're okay with that. As you get higher, let's say you start increasing into the 40, 45 range, maybe it's a 43, 49, okay? Fannie might say, this is a little tricky. I might not want to do this, all right? But maybe their credit score's high. Maybe they have money in the bank. Now they might have an appetite. Like, okay, we might be able to do this. Once you get over 45% front end, Fannie's out. They don't care about anything else. Like, you know what, it's too risky. I don't want to fund this loan. Freddie, however, Fannie's sister or brother, will fund, I've had him approve 49-49, okay? So that means that person had no debt, but that 49% of their gross income went towards housing debt. So Freddie looked at it, says, I understand that half of their income is gonna go towards, gross income is gonna go towards just a house. I understand they're probably gonna pick up some more debts along the way. Like, but I'm okay because their credit rating's high and they might have a couple months in reserves after they close. So they might do it. So that's where we have to play the game in our world, trying to figure out which one will go. The other benefit of Freddie over Fannie is for business owners. If a business owner has been in business for 5 years or more, Freddie will accept only 1 year tax return, right? Fannie will always want 2 years. Fannie will waive the business tax return if they've been in business for 5 years, but they'll still need 2 years of taxes, all right?
So Freddie is more lenient.
Yeah, in ways. Yep, in ways. So Freddie also does more appraisal waivers than Fannie. So if we have a really good file and Fannie's not giving us an appraisal waiver, we'll go to Freddie, and if Freddie gives us the appraisal waiver, we're just going to go through Freddie, right? So we have tools in conventional.
So we can't choose, right? It's up to you.
Basically, we're going to figure out which
You get it.
we're going to give you the best option.
Okay.
Okay?
Gotcha.
Down payment, Because whether you go Fannie or Freddie, you're still getting the same rate. It doesn't matter. We're just trying to make it the easiest possible on you, so we're going to choose whichever investor is going to do it. Down payment. For conventional, what do you have to have for a down payment? 5? Did you know most people still think they need 20% down to buy a house? Over 60% of the people out there think they need 20%.
Yeah, it used to be.
Yeah. So
It used to be years ago.
you can get as low as 5 down. You can also do 3% down on conventional.
Right, I heard that.
But it depends on the median income. You have to be lower than the 80% of the median income, which is somewhere around $70,000 a year. What's $70,000 a year going to get you?
400,000.
Nah, probably not.
Not even?
We're probably going, if they have zero debt, right?
Ah, zero debt.
Yeah, 70,000 a year.
Calculating IRS payments as a debt.
If they owe money, yeah, we have to count that towards their debt to income. So, and they'll find out. So ultimately, what's 70,000 a year? It's about 5,500 a month. We need to get under 50%. That's 2,700 a month. So if they have zero debt, they might get away with a $350,000 purchase.
Zero debt. Who's got zero debt?
Right, not very many. So that product has a very tight window. Mortgage
And
insurance.
Also on the 3%, don't you have to have like a credit score over 800 or
No,
something?
no. It's same credit score, same risk ratio, stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
read on that one, but it's very strict. So.
Yeah. Mortgage insurance. Ultimately, the more you put down, the less your mortgage insurance, right? So the better your credit score, the less your mortgage insurance factor, okay? Obviously, 20% down, you don't have mortgage insurance. If you put 15% down, the factor is only 0.12, 0.15, somewhere around there for good credit. So your mortgage insurance payment on $500,000 loan is probably less than $100 a month if you put 15% down.
So on a 5% down, there's still mortgage insurance, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. Now we could do lender paid mortgage insurance, but your rate's higher. They just work it into the rate. The benefit of that is you can't claim your mortgage insurance payment as a deduction on your taxes. If we're doing it all as the interest rate in your mortgage, your interest rate is higher, you're paying more interest, you have a higher deduction. So we could do it that way, right? It's strategic. And some people who are financially savvy or very analytical will say, yeah, no, I want a higher rate over paying the additional payment to mortgage insurance. It all equals out. That way I can claim more on my taxes. So there's not a huge difference there. Down payment assistance, Nevada does have a conventional down payment assistance program, 4% down payment assistance. And the rates aren't bad. The rates are not bad for that 4% down payment assistance. So that is a good option in Nevada. The national programs, most in-house programs, a lot of them don't have conventional. Okay.
So the down payment is only for FHA and conventional, not for VA, right?
You mean down payment assistance?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, there's VA ones too.
I was.
But VA, that's zero down anyway.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
The only reason you would take something like that is if you wanted to put it towards closing costs,
Right.
but right now, we're getting a lot of concessions for closing
It's
costs.
always zero, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyone done a USDA loan?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, where at?
Pahrump?
Pahrump.
Yes, perfect, yeah, that was the USDA, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. How long did it take?
5 years, same.
Yeah,
same
just
as
30 days?
yours,
Good.
yeah. That was 5 years ago,
Yeah.
but I still remember, I did that and then I did another listing over there, so 2-3 deals.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the USDA eligible areas are shrinking.
Oh, they were.
Yep. USDA means outside of the city, rural areas. That's really rural. Even some of the rural areas are starting to get ineligible because the population is starting to increase. USDA is like VA, is zero down, and it doesn't have mortgage insurance, so it's
Right.
similar to VA. But the problem with USDA is, what was it? Oh, the problem with USDA is it has a strict debt to income, right? We talked about how conventional has Fannie and Freddie, and they like different things, and we can go, it fluctuates, there's a gray area. USDA is super tight. They don't look at risk ratio that much. They're like, okay, you need to have 32, 35. We're not getting up into the 40s. If we get into the 40s, that is a major exception, and you don't see those very often. Okay? USDAs are assumable. Any government loan is assumable. USDA, VA, FHA. Conventionals are not. Okay? Assumable. When someone wants to assume the loan, do assumable loan, who is doing the loan? Do you get to have your lender help them get pre-qualified and assume the loan?
Yeah, of course.
No.
The owner. Oh, you
Yep.
just.
The
it's
servicer.
automatically transferred? It's like a car?
Yeah.
You wanna take up your car payment,
Yep.
is it that good?
Like you'd basically, if you wanted to assume someone's car, you'd go to the bank with them, qualify, and then they just
Or you
do the
just
whole thing.
exchange just like that?
Yeah. Assumable
My son
means,
was telling me you can have your lease transferred over
Yeah.
to somebody.
Yeah.
Why?
but the bank keeps the lease, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the servicer is the one who pre-qualifies the buyer. The servicer doesn't have loan originators usually. So this process is not fast. They have to clunk their way through to get this done.
But you don't check credit, that's the best part.
Oh yeah, you do.
Oh, you do check?
That
credit?
buyer has to qualify for that loan.
For the assumable loan?
Yeah, they have to qualify for it. They're not just going to give it to them. Yep. So they have to qualify, just like they qualify for. Nope.
Can they change the interest?
Nope.
or-
Interest stays. Okay, what's another big problem with assumable loans?
I think I'm confusing this between the lease, that's why.
Ah,
Forget
gotcha.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget that, I had that in my head. I was
Let's-
thinking, should I give my car to somebody right
Right.
now?
When were the rates really good? Back in 2020, 2021?
19.
What about?
Is there any area in Las Vegas, Henderson and North Las Vegas you can get this loan?
Pahrump.
Pahrump and,
Only in Pahrump.
Yeah.
Mesquite, maybe?
Yeah.
Mesquite?
Between here and Mesquite.
Between here and
Yeah.
Mesquite, yeah.
So just probably past. Yeah, we don't got much further east.
And then
But,
Las Vegas, after-
If you go to USDA loans, if you Google it, USDA mortgage loan eligibility, it'll bring up a link where you type in the address and it'll tell you if it's eligible. And it'll show you the area. So that's the easiest way to do it. But the other problem with assumable loans is, let's say they bought that house in 2020 and they owe $300,000 on a 2.5% rate. Say the home's worth $400,000.
Wow.
What happens with that gap?
You pay the down payment,
Yeah, you got to come in with cash,
cash,
or you have to find someone that will do a second.
so like 2 loans.
Yep. So you'll get the 2.5 for $300,000, but then you're going to need $100,000 second for 8, 9, 10%,
Right, right.
somewhere in that range.
So it's not for everyone.
It's definitely not for everybody, and the public doesn't realize that, and most realtors don't realize that either. They just say, "Oh, you got an FHA, we'll mark it that it's assumable," and then the realtor will put it on the MLS. 4 weeks later, someone comes in and says, "Yes, I want to assume this loan. Let's close in 30 days."
It's
So-
better for the seller to carry in that way.
Yeah, so the seller has to contact their servicer right away if they are thinking about doing assumable, so that their servicer knows they can get all the paperwork ready and deem the home assumable, right? Like some of those, they're like, yeah, this loan is not assumable, we're sorry. So then buyer comes in, then the buyer just needs to get qualified and it can move faster. But if they don't start anything until you get a contract, you're looking at 60 days at least to close this deal.
Wow. And the credit has to be good.
Yep.
So why not just get a new loan then? Why assume?
That's the thing. It's a math problem, and
On that, and you pay the closing costs, you
Mhm.
pay this, you pay more points, I guess.
right, exactly.
So get
Most
it.
cases, assuming it is not the best idea.
I've never had it, I don't
Yeah.
know, people ask.
Because I mean, if you go in and you want that FHA loan
Yeah.
that's at 2.25% and it's 200,000, but you got to get a second for 200,000 on an 8, why not just get a new loan at 5.75, somewhere around there?
Double.
Yeah, you're saving money.
And maybe the second one is much higher.
Plus, you might not qualify for that second. Second is harder to qualify for.
I know I won't.
So,
It's hard.
debt to income on FHA, they're much more lenient. Income, as long as the risk ratio, again, all right, if they have decent credit, 640 or above, if their job history is good, if they have at least a month in the account after they close, we could take that back end DTI all the way to 56.99, whereas conventional ended at 50. They will not go past 50. Neither Freddie or Fannie will. So FHA will. The difference between FHA and conventional is a higher interest, lower cost loan. This is for people with money and good credit. The FHA is a lower interest but higher cost.
Oh, okay.
Okay, FHA, Federal Housing Administration, created this to make homes affordable. All right, it's not first-time home buyer program.
Right.
FHA is for people who don't have a lot of money saved, who may not have the best credit, right? Or someone who may have gone through bankruptcy 2 years ago, to whereas conventional won't allow anything under 4. Okay, so that's why FHA would be used.
What about the credit? FHA and let's say they're in that same situation, but their credit, the conventional wants a better credit or FHA wants?
We can get conventional all the way down to 640. It's not pretty. They better.
640, I thought it's 600.
Nope. Conventional. Conventional's at 640. If we're at 640 on conventional, they better have at least 40% equity. Otherwise, they're going to be paying through the nose.
FHA is the one to go if you have only 580 credit score, right?
It's the only one you can go,
580.
or VA, right? FHA will allow all the way down to 580. VA, in some cases, we can go down to 540. So, down payment.
If somebody has foreclosure or bankruptcy, they can allow, FHA can allow
Sooner.
after 2 years?
5 years.
It's sooner than conventional. We'll get to that one. I got a whole sheet on that one. Okay. So 3.5% down payment for FHA, that's set. Mortgage insurance. This is why FHA is a high cost loan. Because not only are you paying a monthly mortgage insurance, which is 0.55, it's reasonable.
Right.
You know, most of the conventionals right now are somewhere between 0.35, 0.45. That's with good credit.
Right.
So FHA, you can have a 640 and get a 0.55 monthly mortgage insurance premium. So that's not bad. But the cost of it, there is an upfront mortgage and premium. That loan, that is 1.75 of the loan amount. So if your loan amount is $500,000, all of a sudden now you have $9,000 rolled into your loan at the very front. That's tacked on if you don't pay it as a closing cost. All right, so that's why it's a high cost loan. The other difference, all right, conventional, once you hit 20% equity, you can get rid of your mortgage insurance.
Oh, yeah, 20%,
Yeah,
right.
right? FHA, when you get 20% equity, can your mortgage insurance be dropped off?
I don't think so.
Not usually, right?
No. I've never heard of it, but conventional, yes.
FHA, there's one caveat to
Okay.
if you put 10% down on an FHA up front, after 10 years, you can get rid of your mortgage insurance.
10 years.
10 years?
They usually buy another house in 10 years.
Who's in their home for 10 years and never
who has
refied?
10%?
Yes.
Who has 10%? They're looking at on a 440 grand. It's,
Yeah.
It's really hard to find. FHA are the ones who are really like tight.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
about 10 years. Oh my gosh.
Down payment assistance, there's lots of down payment assistance for FHA. That's most of it. Nevada has it, national, in-house.
Right.
What we don't have a lot of is the grants, right? The ones that are forgiven after 3 or 5 or 7 years. We have in Nevada, there's a teacher grant for teachers, $7,500.
Right.
And that one is forgivable after 5 years. And it's also prorated. So if they don't refi or sell for 3 years, then they only have to pay back whatever that calculation is for 2 years, right? Instead of the whole $7,500, it's prorated.
Can you get those loans with no down payment for manufactured homes?
DPA, yeah, down payment assistance, we can use that for manufactured homes.
Per home?
Yep.
For manufactured home?
Absolutely.
No down payment.
Yeah. So we have an in-house down payment assistance that has a 5-year forgivable. Okay, so we have one at Epic, but most of the rest of them not forgivable. So FHA, USDA, VA, they all have strict appraisals. Okay, to whereas a conventional appraiser goes in and as long as they see an oven in there and it works, they're gonna say, okay, this home is livable, it can close.
Make sure the oven works.
Yeah. FHA, if they go in, if they walk up to the house and they see a piece of paint peeling off the eave, this home is not funding without repairs. Okay? There are certain things that FHA appraisers will look for. Flooring issues, right? You know, those rickety closet doors on rollers that usually pop off the track and they end up in the dumpster or whatnot. If those are missing, the appraisal will require that those closet doors are replaced before closed. Funding. Peeling paint.
Really?
Elevation problems.
Wow.
If it's sloping to the basement, they might require that. Depends on the appraiser. Straps. Straps on hot water heater. That's a popular one. Usually we see that every time.
How about the VA, same thing?
Same thing. Same thing with
my
VA.
God, I know
All
this.
government loans have strict appraisal requirements. So FHA sticks with the property for 3 months, 90 days.
Okay.
So let's say you're a listing agent, you accept an FHA offer, and that home comes in, they say, we need this whole house repainted because your siding is peeling all over the place. Seller says, absolutely not, we're selling this as is. Deal cancels, you're gonna need to go into your MLS and remove FHA. And you're gonna get a bunch of calls. Why can't this go FHA? I got an FHA buyer. Nope, seller's not willing to accept any FHA contracts.
That's why you don't see many FHAs on there, only cash and conventional.
Right, exactly. So,
Even condos, they have an issue, right? It's that rental issues and then that other violations that they've had.
FHA can be easier to get approval on condos than conventional. It can be. And just because you don't see the project on the approved list doesn't mean it can't go FHA.
Okay.
Our condo department in-house will do spot approvals. They'll get whole projects approved. The reasons those things fall off the list is because the HOA management might change. They might get a new manager. They might forget to turn in their reports year after year, and it just slips away, and they don't care because nobody ever brought to their attention until one seller says, hey, I'm trying to sell my house, and I can't get this approved FHA because your guys' budget isn't up to date.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And it really comes down to if we got a reasonable HOA manager that's willing to do a little bit of work with our department to update the numbers and figures, we could usually get that whole project reapproved.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is you get these HOAs that don't care, and we get the wrong person on the phone, and
Right.
they really don't care, and then it just goes nowhere. So just because, if you're a seller and you're listing a condo, call your lender that you use a lot, say, hey, tell me about this project. And what I'll do is I'll go in and look and see what sold lately. If I find an FHA, I'm like, yeah, we can do this because someone did a spot approval last year.
Right.
Problem with though is some buildings, they might be able to spot approve some buildings because remember the whole peeling paint thing?
Right.
That counts for the whole building. They might have lost, because it'll tell you in the list, building A, C, and E approved. Because maybe D, D, F, and G might have peeling paint, or they might have
That's why, yeah, I see
some other issues that aren't approvable. So it's very picky. So
They
just
also have this, I'm sorry, Temple.
so just reach out to your lender if you're listing a condo to find out what eligibility you can get out of it.
They also have this litigation and a lot of other things with the HOA
Mhm.
and lawsuits, and I had a tough one. It took me like 2 months. I had to reach out to this, I believe it was Nevada State Bank, and I had to get to the top, to the vice president to
Yeah.
get that approved. Because, my God, I mean, we're almost closing, and in the last minute, they said, no.
Yeah. No, and that's the problem. We want to find those litigations up front. Contact your title person and contact your lender if you're listing a condo Title person will find litigation issues that are
Yes.
pending.
Yes,
The lender will see if they could get it approved.
of course, yes.
All right? So you leverage your assets.
Yes.
FHAs are assumable. VA. Debt to income on VA is even more gray, right? I've gotten the VAs approved with 62% debt to income on the back end. So 62% of that person's gross income was going towards housing and debts on their credit report, cars, loans, all of that. And we were able to get that approved. So VA is way more lenient in that world.
Yeah.
Zero down payment, but that doesn't mean zero closing costs. Zero mortgage insurance. So VA sounds amazing. Funding fee. I have a sheet for that here in a little bit, but the funding fee varies. If your VA buyer has any type of disability income coming from the VA, they're probably exempt from the funding fee, which is great. First one is over 2%. Second one's over 3%. It gets expensive after you use it multiple times. But if you have that exemption, you never have to pay one.
And they don't pay taxes too? Property taxes? Up to 800.
They have exactly. There's a discounted. Every county's
You told me
different.
that. You told me
Yeah.
that, I remember it. Yeah.
Don't get into that conversation. Tell your buyer to reach out to the county assessor and see as a disabled veteran, because it depends on their percentage of disability too.
It's not like they can buy $1 million house and get away with the taxes.
Right, but it helps, right?
$20,000 of tax on a $2 million home.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
How often you can get VA loan? Somebody's.
As many times as you want.
I
So
think
if
I-
they sell in New York and move here, they can get.
As soon as their eligibility is restored, they can get another one, which is usually 24 hours.
Okay, but
As
they
soon as
can't
the
have
department-
two homes, no.
No, they
What was
don't.
that?
No.
They can't have two homes.
Why not?
Like if they purchase in New York
Mhm.
and
Oh.
they got VA loan,
Mhm.
but now they renting and they wanna move here and get another VA.
Yeah.
They do that?
Oh, two
Absolutely.
homes in two different states,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
you
good.
can.
So here's the trick, okay? The conventional loan limit for pretty much everywhere, unless we get into high balance, is 800,000. All right. The rule of thumb when you're working with VA clients and they want to have multiple VA loans is we don't want to go over 800,000 in loan amount. So if they have a $300,000 loan right now with VA, they could still go out and do a zero down VA loan if their loan amount's only going to be 500 and keep that one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, or if it goes over 800, it doesn't mean they can't do the VA loan. It just means we have to do a calculation to see how much down they have to do to insure the property, right? Because when we talk about Fannie and Freddie and the 20% mortgage insurance, now if we're going over that VA entitlement amount, now they want their entitlement insured and all of that. So there's a complicated math problem. California, certain areas have a higher conventional loan limit. Alaska, I think it's almost $1 million now. Don't ask me why, because
No, the homes are-
well, my son's living in a beautiful home for $300,000 in
Where,
Fairbanks.
in Alaska?
Yeah.
Really? I thought you can't even get a garage for that.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's 2-car garage, 4-bedroom,
Oh, nice.
bi-level
But
in
in California,
Fairbanks.
you can't get
No way.
300.
So Alaska's the place to be if you want to have 3 or
Yeah,
4
that's so
VA
cool.
loans, right?
Thank you, so cool.
Alaska will be Russians pretty soon.
I'm gonna freeze over there, it's like
Right.
putting you in an icebox.
So VA and FHA, those and conventional, the loan limits increase if you go multiple unit homes, 2, 3, 4-plex, whatnot. So if you're doing FHA loan on a 4-plex, your loan limit's not $523,000, it's over $1 million. Okay, so VA, same thing.
Yeah.
Could you imagine having your VA loan? You have to live in one if you're FHA or VA, but going in and putting zero down on a 4-plex that's selling for $800,000, you could do it. It's awesome. Strict appraisals, we talked about that. VA loans is the only one that you can use seller concessions to pay off personal debt. It's awesome. So let's say their DTI was just a little bit too high and we weren't getting an approval. But if we paid off their $900,000 or their $9,000 car payment, the month what's left on the car, and remove that $400 a month card payment, all of a sudden we can approve. So I tell my underwriter, I say, mark this paid at close, check, here's your approval. And then we go back and say, okay, we're going to use seller concessions to pay off this car at close. Seller doesn't have to come out of pocket to pay it off. Buyer doesn't have to come out of pocket to pay it off. It's just paid off at title out of the seller's proceeds. So up to 2%. So if it's a $500,000 purchase, they can get $10,000 from the seller to pay off personal debt.
Not bad.
It's the only loan you can do that for.
How does that work?
The payment have to be through escrow.
The seller just say, I'll drop 10,000 on the sell price?
So like, let's say the seller's getting that $500,000 for their house. On their line item for their HUD statement, it's gonna show $9,800 for that car. And when it closes,
So the seller's
escrow
paying
is going to send a check to that car for that car payment. It's gonna be paid off.
So is the seller is actually paying off the
Yeah.
debt of the buyer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a seller says, I'm gonna give you 3% concessions. That's $15,000. And out of that $15,000 concession, 9 of it is going towards the car, and that's gonna be sent from title at close to the car dealership to pay it off.
Only for VA loan.
Only for VA. Yep. So, assumable. Who can assume a VA loan?
Another veteran?
Another veteran.
The children.
Anyone.
Oh, and-
You could. You could. Okay, here's the problem, and it bothers me because so many people are going around doing this, getting these veterans to say, yeah, I'll let my home be assumed. Anybody can assume that loan, right? But if a non-veteran comes in and assumes that loan, let's say it's a beautiful 2.25% rate. My son's got a 2.25% rate. If he sells his home, he offers, hey, you can assume my loan to try and get more people in to buy it, right? The problem is, if a non-veteran assumes a VA loan, that entitlement stays open until it's paid off. So remember, you can have more VA. So if he owes $300,000 on that loan, all of a sudden when he goes to buy another VA home, his entitlement is decreased because that's not paid off. But if it is another veteran, it just transfers to their entitlement and restores full entitlement to the seller who sold it. So make sure if you have a client and you're listing their home and they have a VA loan on the property, they understand that if they're going to offer it assumable, the person who comes in and buys it and is not VA, they're probably going to be stuck with that on their entitlement for a while. Okay?
So another buyer, assuming that VA is beneficial to the other buyer, or would he be rather getting a new VA?
If the seller has no intention of buying another house, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But if the seller has the intention to buy another house,
Right.
he needs to think about that when it comes time for someone to come in and assume his
Because
VA.
it's zeroed out, right, if it's a VA buyer?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, non-VA buyer, no.
So we have an $800,000 conventional loan limit. We have a $523,000 FHA loan limit. What's the VA loan limit?
450? No,
450? 6?
580? I don't know.
Trick question. There is no limit.
There's no limit to a
No limit VA.
loan?
If you qualify, you buy it.
You could buy $1 million home?
You can buy a $3 million home.
Just
you can get only
FHA has
800,000.
requirements. Okay.
Only if you have full entitlement, right? Meaning that if you had another house still on your VA, you are stuck with the county limit, like 800,000, okay? But if you have 100% entitlement, meaning you have no other loans on your VA at the time you purchase, your loan limit is unlimited. So you can buy that $1.5 million as long as you qualify with your debt to
I didn't
income.
know that.
Yep.
I've done quite a few.
So if we have someone that has a VA loan and he wants to keep it as a rental, right? He might, if he wants to buy a big house or a fourplex that's $1.2 million fourplex, his best bet is probably to refinance that other VA loan into a conventional and set that as a rental. And then restore his entitlement to 100% and then go get that house with no limit.
Right.
Okay, and hopefully he's got an exemption on his eligibility, otherwise he's going to pay a massive funding fee, right? So,
Interesting.
Jumbo loans is anything over the conforming loan amount, which is 800,000, not the purchase price. All right. So if we do a $1 million purchase price and put 200,000 down, where are we at? 800. So it's conventional. It's not a jumbo loan. But if we do 1.5 million and only put 20% down, we got a $1.2 million loan amount. Now we're jumbo.
What's the interest on a jumbo right now?
It varies. You know, you can get, depending on the product, you can get in the high sixes or the sevens. It all depends on credit and money down. Those are your biggest pieces on jumbo loans. And the better products with the better rates are going to want to see lower DTI. They're going to have higher restrictions along with all jumbo products, which is sometimes why we would go, all right, it's a $1.2 million home. We're going to put 10% down and do a piggyback second to cover the rest to get us to a conventional loan limit. There might be a reason in some jumbo guideline that we can't go, whereas conventional will allow it. Then we get creative and get ourselves down to the conventional world. Okay? Down payment, again, you can do it 10%. Who works with doctors?
Oh, I did, yeah.
If you work with doctors, we have a doctor's program where they could put 5% down, up to $3 million, no mortgage insurance. We don't count their student loans.
Oh, there's a, it's like a teacher thing?
Yeah.
You have doctors?
It's our own internal
I
doctor
didn't know
program.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
and those rates are good. They're actually good. So,
Not
Like,
LI
it's
as
only
well?
doctors, like,
only doctors. Nurses, we're working on nurses right now. That should be out sometime this year. But right now, we only have the doctor program. So they have to be a doctor, dentist, licensed medical field.
I wish I met you an hour ago. I just met my urologist, a nice guy, 35 years old.
Yeah,
I should have saw.
It's a
you know,
great
I talked
program.
to him and told him about this program.
Great
I'll
program.
see him next time. I'll tell him about
Okay.
it.
Mortgage insurance, usually it's just worked into the rate. There's not a separate mortgage insurance. So if you put down 10%, if you're not a doctor in the doctor loan, you put 10 or 15% down, your rates are going to be a lot higher as opposed to 20% down. Stricter guidelines, talked about piggybacks. Non-QM loans. Non-QM stands for non-qualifying mortgage. All right, so it means Fannie and Freddie won't do it. It won't do FHA, it won't do VA. We have to go outside to private funding. All right? DSCR. Who knows what DSCR means? It's a debt service coverage ratio, right? So basically the simple explanation for this is if that home will rent for more than the actual mortgage payment, they will fund it. 15% down, 20% down, that all depends on the ratio. And they don't care how much you make. They don't want to see your tax returns. They don't want to see your income. They just want to make sure that this home will rent for more than the mortgage. And the better that ratio, let's say it's a $500,000 home, and the mortgage payment is $3,000 a month, they want to make sure that it'll rent for $3,750 a month.
So you send them a lease agreement, or they check in by themselves?
Both. So they'll take your lease agreement and they'll also do a rental analysis, and whichever's lower, they'll take. Okay? So again, the biggest factor is the ratio. This product works amazing for condos, right? Because you go in, you get a $300,000 condo, you throw $60,000 down, your payment's like $1,100 or $1,200 a month. Then your rent is around $1,800 or so. So with that good of a ratio and 20% down, we probably are getting a rate in the sixes. Wild for an investment loan to get into the sixes and not have to show your income or taxes, right? So that's a good product for, and you can have as many as you want of these. All right? Fannie and Freddie will only allow you to have 10 mortgages before they stop loaning to you. If you do DSCRs, you can do 20 of them. And you can buy in an LLC. You don't have to buy as a person. Because really, they're just securing this whole loan based on the asset. Based on they know it'll rent for more than your mortgage. you're putting 15, 20 or more down. They said that's easy. That's less riskier than an FHA with 3.5% down. They'll do those all day long. Okay. Bank statement loans. Sometimes we get a business owner that makes tons of money, but on their taxes they show they make nothing. But maybe their bank statement shows that they got $50,000 of revenue coming in each month. Cool. We can go. We don't even have to calculate the expenses.
They hide something for
Yeah.
us, yeah?
Yeah, we could say, okay, we're just going to use a 50% expense ratio on it. So we've calculated $50,000 a month of income, and we're going to hit it with a 50% expense ratio. Could be more, could be less. And all of a sudden now, your qualifying income is $25,000 a month, but your taxes said you lost money. So we can do bank statements. The rates are higher; they're in the 8s. All right, they want reserves. Like when I say reserve, 1 month reserves, meaning you have 1 month of mortgage payment in the bank. Bank statements, they want to see 6, 9, 12, depending on the risk and what's going on. You can have an accountant write a letter and tell them what your expense ratio is, and we can use that. But the simple slam dunk version is we just use a 50% expense ratio, calculate your income, and we rock and roll. So that's good for some realtors who make a ton of money that zero out. I'm working with a dentist who his taxes show their incoming revenue from sales is over $450,000 a year. If he wanted a bigger house, we could have used that instead of going with his tax number. So, but the rate's higher. Profit and loss, same thing. She asked about manufactured homes. We can loan on single or double wide. Must be affixed. All right. There is an affidavit of a fixture that usually comes when they set it on the ground. It doesn't have to be affixed to a concrete foundation. It can be sitting on blocks, on the dirt, on a 2-acre lot. Conventional will loan on that, as long as the engineer goes and certifies it's safe, it's securely mounted, it's not going to fall over. They can certify it and get an engineering report. It's affixed. FHA wants it strapped. So not only does it have to sit on blocks, but they want to see straps. So someone will go out there, pound stakes deep into the ground, and use steel straps going over the truss of it to secure it, because FHA doesn't want to see it blow over. Because it blows over, their loan's history, because that person's just going to walk away and forget about it. Like, I ain't paying this loan. House is sitting on its side. Okay? So it must be affixed. We can do land leases, right? It can be on a land lease, not in a mobile home park, because mobile home parks will not allow a certificate of fixation, because that's not your lot. You're paying for space rent. As soon as you affix it, they're basically saying you own this lot underneath it.
You know, it's interesting about the land lease. I did one in California, remember? They had a lot of manufactured homes in that area. It was a land lease, I remember.
Now, if it's on trust land, right? If it's sitting on trust land and they got a land lease, we can loan on that. We have a product for it. It's just these mobile home parks, no go. If it's in a mobile home park, we can't fund it, and now you can't sell it because they just made that change. Okay? So now we're on the same page. 1976 or newer. USDA does not like to loan on manufactured homes.
USDA doesn't.
Yeah, everybody else will. VA,
Except for the
FHA,
rural
conventional.
areas, right? That's why they don't have manufactured homes.
Yeah, USDA is picky.
Yeah, there was big.
If you have someone that wants to live in rural and they're USDA, have them reach out to USDA direct first, because USDA has a department inside. They have low income, right? And they have much lower rates for people who qualify for that special USDA program. We can't loan on it. No lenders can loan on it. USDA department has to do it. But they can still today get rates in the 2s and 3s. If they qualify based on their income. So if you have a retired couple who only gets $3,000 a month in Social Security, they might be able to get approved through the USDA on low income for a home on a couple acres in Pahrump. because a 3% interest versus a 6% interest is a huge difference in payment. And they could qualify. Because once they qualify in that USDA program, they have to send their financials every year. The moment they're making way too much for the program, things adjust. But if we're on a fixed income like Social Security, that's not going to change. And they can qualify forever,
Right.
really.
How
So,
about Gene? I think Gene is covered, right?
what is?
USDA? Gene?
Gene.
Gene, the city Gene?
Yeah, probably.
Between here and,
Google. So after we're done, Google USDA loan eligibility areas. It'll bring up a link and type in an address in Gene, and it'll tell you, like, eligible area.
I think they do, because it's rural.
Yeah. Not in the park. All right. 2-1 buy down. Who knows the difference between temporary and permanent buy downs?
I like to do that.
Right.
I didn't know about a temporary buy down.
Okay. What's a permanent buy down?
Total, you, for the length of the.
Right. Life of the loan. Cool. Doing it right now. Pulte. We're rescuing a loan from Pulte. They screwed it up. They saw too much. They asked for the wrong things, and their underwriter saw the wrong stuff.
Wow.
Right? Guy in here, one of our agents here, came to me and says, "Hey, can you fix this?" Looked at it, said, "Let me send it to my underwriter." I got the package, punched it in, we got an approval. Pulte said, "If your lender can approve this, we'll give them the $30,000 concession to use still."
Oh, good.
So we were able to use that $30,000, not even all of it. We didn't even need it all. So that's how much better we are in Pulte. We just don't have their 30G in concessions to throw at the rate. We were able to get down to 4.99 permanent buy down.
Nice.
All right. One day when their FHA rate or conventional, they might keep that forever, right? Because they are putting 10% down. So in 10 years, they can get rid of that mortgage insurance. They might keep that mortgage until they sell the house,
Right.
which is cool. But if rates got down below 4.99, let's say they cruise down to 4 and they're like, I want a lower payment. They refinance it. Great. Let's say it's 3 years down the road. What happens to all the money they paid up front to buy down the rate? It's in the trash.
Yeah.
So over 3 years, they wasted $30,000. It's not always the best idea. If you need it to qualify, it's the only idea, right? If you don't need it to qualify and you just want that badge of honor saying, I got a great rate, that is the horrible idea because the rates are going down. What's going on in the economy right now? Oh my gosh, it was 8:30 at night and I'm getting texted from one of my Utah guys who's building a house in Cedar City and he's worrying about all the tariffs and stuff, right? His home's going to be done mid to late April. He says, oh my gosh, can we lock? I'm worried about all this tariff stuff. I said, what's the economy doing right now? He's a pretty smart guy and watches numbers, and that's why he's contacting me, because he watches everything. I was like, what's the economy doing right now? He goes, it looks terrible. I go, what's the Dow doing? It sucks. I go, okay, do you got any stocks in the Dow? He goes, yeah, and I'm worried. I go, did you sell any stocks? He goes, a couple. I'm like, guess what? So is everybody else. Where's all that money? When you see sell-offs in the Dow, where's that money going? Secure like bonds and CDs and stuff to wait it out, right? I'm like, yeah. What are the mortgage rates backed by?
Bonds.
Bonds,
I
security.
got a Series 7, that's why.
Yeah. When a ton of money goes into a
Don't
bond,
worry about the stock
when a
market.
ton of money floods into a bond or security, what happens to the yield? No.
It goes down.
Yield goes in the
I'm
trash.
sorry, it goes
Yeah.
down, yeah.
Yield
Bonds
goes in the
and-
trash.
Bonds and real estate is, mortgage is related.
Right.
You don't care about stocks.
No.
I was
Stocks are
shocked.
crazy people doing stupid things every day based on news.
And you don't sell, you wait.
Yeah. So the mortgage-backed securities,
I was a
the yield is
stockbroker.
tanking, right? So when the 10-year yield goes down, where do the mortgage rates go? Down.
Down.
So in the midst of all this crazy that's going on, our rates have been going down for the last 2 weeks.
But you can claim it to your tax for 30
No.
years.
I studied bonds more than anybody did.
Yep.
3 months, I got my Series 7.
Awesome.
I was a stockbroker
Yeah.
for 3 years in Morgan Stanley.
Yeah. And then
All I did was
so
go
he's
with
worried
the
about
stocks and
inflation.
sell.
This is great. So he's worried about inflation.
I know a lot about stocks. I have a license
Yeah.
or a degree.
So he understands inflation might go
So
up.
you do bonds and mortgage, why you care about stocks?
Exactly.
There are times-
So he's like, thank you.
What about
I'm
the
going to go to
bonds
bed
going
now.
up?
I'm going to sleep fine.
Yeah.
He's like, but inflation affects mortgage rate, affects the Fed.
Do the bonds,
And so he's like, so when the inflation goes up, the Fed is going to raise the Fed rate back up again. I'm like, they can do whatever they want, but we still have yields coming out of the bonds. I'm like, if inflation goes up, let's say the border wars happen and all of a sudden it's too much money to pay for things. What's going to happen? People are going to lose jobs.
right.
Who's going to buy stuff? Nobody.
But-
We already see a manufacturing report that has dropped in the
Yes.
past already. So all the signs point to what? Recession.
Yes.
We're just going to formalize what we've been in. Everything Trump is doing is speeding up the process to get everybody on the same page
Yes.
that, oh, we're in a recession. We've been in a recession, guys. We've been in a recession for at least a
We are in
year.
a recession, yes.
The job numbers is the only thing that everybody's been paying attention to. It's like, how can we be in a recession when we have the best unemployment rate that we've had in
No,
years?
we don't.
Because the biggest employer over the past 3 years in jobs creation has been the government. And that's going away. So with the lack of jobs and the energy costs coming down and the lack of spending, we can't have inflation. They're going to be forced to keep prices down or they'll sell nothing. So all of those things have to come. You have to look at a big picture, and what we know is that people are going to freak out and it's going to be a constant cycle of buying and selling in the market. But we know that there's always going to be money funneling into bonds to take a safe haven. So our rates are going to continue to trend. They'll do this, but it's going to trend down.
Did you watch the speech last night?
I didn't. I don't like watching them anymore.
I was stuck to the TV for.
I heard all the stuff. Yeah.
No, I recorded it, my daughter watched it, my husband watched it, my son watched it. Did you hear what he said about the interest rates?
Mm-mm.
He said,
It's
these
going
are the
down.
words, I mean, he said a lot, but he said, did you know the interest rates are down today? And he was right, and you know what? Wish for the stocks to go down, you guys,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that is the.
Because that's where the money's going.
I studied so much into bonds that maybe I should have been a mortgage broker, right?
Right?
They should have traded their stocks last night.
Actually, before I came in, I used to sit with the mortgage brokers and do the loans.
Yeah.
And that's why I used to have this
Yeah.
thing in
The
my
stock
head.
market is like Vegas. It's
I'm really
gambling.
by the buyers, right?
It's long-term gambling.
Watch the stock market fall
Yeah.
and watch the economy go better, because
Yeah.
guess what's gonna happen? The houses are going to go up.
And what I told him,
So where
I
does it
said,
go?
for those who remain employed are going to thrive in the real
Yes.
estate market going
Yes.
forward. They're going to get
Buy
wealthy.
gold.
They're going to be the ones being able to
And
buy
cheaper
at low
stocks.
rates and taking advantage. So,
Do you have any
and you
more
guys are
questions?
employed because you're employing yourself. You're going to go out and sell
Yes,
houses.
but yeah.
So you guys are in a great spot.
Yeah, I know.
Temporary buy down.
2 years only?
So the permanent buy down, if you pay a point, when we say point, that's 1% of the loan amount. So if the loan's 500, to buy down the rate by 1 point, it's going to cost you 5,000. Buying down the point right now in this crazy, volatile, jacked up mortgage stack is only going to get you 3/8. So if you're starting at 7 and you pay $5,000, you're going to lower your rate to 6.625.
Not much.
Not much. It's going to save you 40, 50 bucks a month.
Right.
Usually you're going to have to wait 8 years to break even.
I gotta take this call.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense to permanent buy down right now because where are rates going? Down. We're probably going to pass that 6.625 in months, not even years. So we don't permanent buy down. Temporary buy downs, however, they're a little more than, it's about, for a 2-1 buy down, it's about 2.25 points. Okay, so we're looking at $12,000 on a $500,000 loan. But instead of 7, for the first year of your mortgage, your payment's based on a 5% rate. All right? The second year of your mortgage, it's based off of a 6% rate. And then year 3, if you still have this loan and never refinanced, it's 7 for the next 28 years. It's locked. Some people think, oh, it's variable. No, it's a fixed 30-year loan. It's just they take that $12,000, they put it in an escrow account, and they pull from it each month to make up the difference from what you're actually paying and what the normal 7% rate would be. So if you got locked in with a 2-1 buy down at 7%, year later, it's going to come up, your payment's going to be based off 6%, but we're going to be under 6% in a year. So we refinance into a 30-year fixed at, let's say, 5.75. Anything left in that escrow account, which is probably about $4,000 or $5,000, gets refunded. That goes towards the principal, towards any costs, anything you want. So unlike the permanent buy down that just goes in the trash, you never get back. The temporary buy down, any funds that weren't used during that buy down period, that escrow account gets refunded. Okay?
So the temporary buy down is the same money wise, like for 1 point it
A little
costs
more
the same?
expensive.
Oh,
So
a little bit more expensive.
the 2-1 buy down is about 2.25 points, so you're looking at about $12,000
Wow, that's
versus a permanent buy down. So the permanent buy down for $10,000 would have bought your first year rate down to 6.4, right? And that goes in the trash.
Okay.
To whereas a 2-1 buy down, that $12,000 bought your first year rate down to 5, second year rate at 6. So even if you spent 2 years in there and used it all up and then refinanced, you never paid a 7%. The highest rate you paid was 6.
Refinancing might cost you another 10,000.
Not through us, because if you buy through us for the next 5 years, we pay all your loan costs on your refis. Every 6 months if it drops 0.5%. So it's a good strategy.
That's what you tell the buyers, go with 7% now, in 1 year.
Yeah.
God damn it, you can refinance it.
Exactly.
I think so much. They have to
They
believe
don't.
me because I'm the most positive person left on this earth.
It takes a lot.
Nobody
It
knows
takes a
by
lot to
now.
get someone's head wrapped around this.
I got this, how old is he, 78-year-old?
Mhm.
To get into a house, I can do, my gosh.
Usually,
And John is such a cool guy, seriously.
uh-oh.
Helps out so much.
Usually,
First time I've been with that person.
what happened?
Didn't know anything about it.
What happened? All right, put this back to.
I had a bad experience with that other.
Oh, we're good.
other wholesaler. They're horrible people. I didn't know about a temporary buy down at all.
Let's see, one,
It's so
five.
expensive, why somebody would go.
All right.
with that.
So usually it's the seller concessions that pay it. A lot of times it doesn't make sense for you as the buyer to put money into an escrow to make the payment. All right. Usually it's something that if we can get the seller concessions and we need to spend it all on closing costs, we could do a 2-1, a 1-1, a 1-0, something there that we could use that concession to spend to lower your payment. All right.
Why didn't you use that?
We were going to, but remember, our PLS, in order to get your super low rate with no buy down, didn't allow for the 2-1 buy down, right? If we went with conventional, we would have had to pay money to buy down the rate to get to use the 2-1 buy down. So it just didn't make sense.
Can you finance it within when the rates go down?
Oh yeah, we can keep refinancing them.
That's free, right?
Yep, for free. Yep. When you refinance, you can't do a temporary buy down, obviously, because it makes no sense to do. Okay. This is a real, I actually turned this in because I did this class yesterday at Green Valley, and I noticed that these were 2025 limits. So I turned it into our marketing department to give me updated ones for Clark County that gave you the limits, but it tells you here, you can see the funding fee for VA. So if they don't put anything down their first year, if they're not exempt, their first year funding is 2.15. And that goes into the loan, kind of like the FHA. So if they get a $500,000
I
loan,
didn't know that, yeah.
$10,000 goes into the loan.
Oh,
Okay?
nice.
Yeah, ish, right? That's a lot of money to go into loan, but it's still a great product.
Right, right.
The second time, instead of 10,000, they're looking at over 15,000.
Wow.
So if they're exempt, great. But if they put 5% down, they can get a funding fee of 1.5 instead of 3.3. So think about that. If I have a $500,000 home, either I put $15,000 into the loan as a funding fee, or I put $25,000 down towards my principal. What would you rather do? Yeah, I'd go principal. That's where a good lender gets outside the box and says, you don't want to throw away that money. If you can come up with another 10, gift, whatever, let's do that. Wouldn't you rather, I'm not going to say it. We're
I'll take the
recording.
orange one.
So, and then same thing.
Yeah, I do.
Can
I
we
want
buy
one.
it on a 50% discount?
No, I
Right.
want one as a new,
10% down, they can get 1.25.
Oh, it's always
All right.
growing, yeah.
So it's not always stuck there.
It's on Cuba, on 04.
oh, that's the one you got in
Mortgage
this.
102, pay for it. Pay for it.
Right?
Mortgage 102.
All right, I think my battery died on my thingy.
102.
I
Let's-
have a question,
Yep.
Dan. Okay, so if you have rentals, right?
Uh-huh.
And you sold your residential. So
Mhm.
if you buy another one here in Las Vegas, because you're the residential
Mhm.
here, would that be like a first-time buyer?
No, but there's not really much first-time buyer programs.
Because they said, oh, okay.
Yeah, you can get DPA without first-time home as not a first-time home buyer.
Okay.
There's not a lot of benefits right now to
It's like
first-time
a
home buyers.
residential again.
Yep. Some credit unions will have special programs for first-time home buyers, but there's not a lot in general right now.
Do
So,
you
'cause-
have any good loans for foreigners?
yes, we can do that DSCR for foreigners.
How much down?
I believe it's 35% down.
You don't have anything lower than
Mm-mm.
30, no?
No.
Make up money, like Trump said, bring me $5 million.
They
and
need
he's
tax
gonna
ID
give
number
you a
and
citizenship.
approval income, right?
No,
No?
not for that DSCR. They don't need, and credit-wise, we don't even need credit.
35% down.
How much money do
So
they
someone from the Philippines could have a bunch of money in their account in the
They're buying-
Philippines.
they're buying
They don't need a credit
properties.
score. They don't need to show us how much they make. They can just send 35% down on this condo, and we could fund it because the rent's probably going to be high enough. Yeah, tell all your friends in the Philippines with a bunch of money.
What about,
They name it to their relatives, sir, see?
That's different, yeah, but
I have
35%
some
But
clients
they
for
can,
commercial.
they can.
So here's the thing. The best bet, if they're going to have
Commercial though?
no commercial.
no commercial.
If they have people here wanting to buy homes and they're residents, then
They're foreigners.
yeah,
Tourists.
the foreign money could send the money over. That person could put the money in their account and let it season for 60 days, and then they can use it to buy it as a primary or a citizen or resident, something like that. So that's a different option. But it has to be seasoned. If they want to buy it themselves and just buy a whole bunch of units, they can. It's going to cost them 35%. We don't need to see credit. We don't need to see income. It's just based on the rent.
The money can be wired from foreigner.
Yeah,
some
can.
other,
Absolutely.
country.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, they're going to want to see it in some
There
sort
was
of
a program-
financial institution.
60 days, you said? That was-
For seasoning, yes, but if it's the Bank of Philippines or if it's the clearinghouse of Philippines or somewhere where they hold their money and we can show where it's
Oh, a
at,
statement from there.
we just need a statement showing where it's at and wiring to the title, we can do it because every country is different. They just can't pull money out from the mattress or
They usually
from the
keep it
money
under the
hut or
mattress,
whatever they
that's
got.
the problem.
So it just has to be traceable.
They always keep it under the mattress, come on.
Here's a cheat sheet for you for concessions.
Rich people, see?
Seller concessions on conventional, a lot of you are just doing 3% seller concessions max. That's not compensation. That is concessions towards closing costs. You can do 3% towards your compensation and 3% towards closing costs, and that's okay. Seller can pay that. That's if the buyer's putting 10% down or less than 10% down. If they're putting 10% down or more, you can ask for up to 6% seller concessions. So you can ask for 6% of the purchase price on conventional. If we get over 25%, we can ask for up to 9%. That's a lot. If you can find someone to give you 9%, man, you're a hero, okay? If it's an investment property, you can only get 2% concessions. FHA, USDA, the government ones, you can get 6%. That's it, right? Doing one right now where they had almost 4.5% of seller concessions. Then they found out they needed a roof. Seller said, okay, I'll credit another $13,000 towards the roof. Well, that puts us over 6%. Now we have to do an escrow holdback for the roof because we can't give that much concession, which is fine. At least we know about it up front. VA is the tricky one. You ask any lender, I promise you, any lender, say, what's the max concession I can get from the seller on a VA?
3%.
They're going to tell you 4%. They're all going to tell you. If you find someone that says, well, they know what the hell they're doing, okay? Because it is well. It's a gray area. The guideline, and I had to, when I saw the guideline, I actually called my underwriter and I said, walk me through this. Does this mean what I think it means? The guideline says whatever is deemed non-excessive by the underwriter. Non-excessive, that's how gray that is. So it's up to the underwriter to decide if this is a warranted cost that they could get concessions for. So the only restrictions is up to 2% can be used to permanent buy down, no more than 2%. So even if you wanted to use 3% to buy it down to qualify, you couldn't. So up to 2% max. The rest you got to pay for. Up to 2% for the seller debt. You can ask for up to 2% in seller debt. That's where everybody gets hung up on the 4% seller concessions. That's the only number that is anywhere in social media or anywhere you look is the 4%. And it only means because of 2% towards permanent buy down, 2% towards seller or buyer personal debt. Well, guess what? We're doing temporary buy downs. Let's say we want to do a 3-2-1 buy down. 3 years. That's going to be like on a $500,000 home, that's going to be like a $22,000 cost for a 3-2-1 buy down. But shoot, their first year would be like a 4% rate. So, but it's being done, so the underwriter would allow it. So now we're at about $25,000, $22,000. Okay, so we got $22,000. Then we get 2 points for permanent buy down. So now our 3-2-1 starting at 6.5. So their first year is actually 3.5. All right, so we did another 10,000, so we're at 32,000. Okay, and we did the 2% for their debt. So now we're at 42,000. And then what about the regular closing costs that are usually about 6,000 or 7,000? We're almost at $50,000. How much is that? That's 10% seller concessions. And an underwriter cannot call any of it excessive because it's being done.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. 10%.
Yeah.
And they looked over and they let it slide.
She can't say that nobody's doing 3-2-1 because everybody who understands is doing it. Builders are doing it.
So they let it slide.
It can be 10%. That's why it's, well, show me what you're using it for.
I never dreamt it would be 10. I mean, I can't imagine 10%.
I had a listing agent call me. It's like, I gotta ask because usually it's only 4%, but this person's asking for this much money. I go, what's the purchase price?
10%?
That. I go, oh yeah, we could spend that. She's like, but you can't. I go, why can't I? It's like, because the limit's 4%. I go, show me where it's 4%. And I sent her the guideline that showed whatever the underwriter deems non-excessive.
Whatever the underwriter.
Yep, and that underwriter confirmed it. Yep, as long as it is a legitimate cost that people are doing. Now, fast forward, let's say the rates are going up and nobody's doing temporary buy downs. Okay? Then the underwriter says, yeah, you're not getting that. We can't use that. That's excessive. You're asking for too much. Okay? So that's the whole deal with the seller concessions on VA. So, and like I said, you're going to be hard pressed to find a lender that doesn't just say 4%. Credit seasoning time frames. Let's see here. Bankruptcy. Chapter 7, Chapter 11. Chapter 7 is the whole enchilada. You're not making payments. You're just wiping everything off. That requires conventional 4 years. FHA 2 years from discharge, not from filing date. This is what gets everybody hung up. We need the stamp discharge date. That's where the 2 years starts, or the 4 years starts. The Chapter 13, conventional says 2 years from discharge, or 4 years from dismissal. All right, so when they say 4 years from dismissal, that's when they start. Let's say they, all right, this case is done. Here's your payment. You're going to pay the creditors until it's paid off. The discharge on a Chapter 13 is when you've paid everything off. All right, so 2 years after you pay everything off, you can get a conventional, but then we get gray in FHA because under certain circumstances, you could get approved for an FHA loan after you make your first payment right out of Chapter 13. In extreme cases, you can do that. Usually they want to see 1 year. Most mortgage lenders will have a overlay. It says you have to be 1 year out of your Chapter 13 that you're making payments. All right, not discharge, because discharge means you're done with it altogether. We have programs that I've used to fund loans under 2 years of discharge. We've done it to where they are 4 months short, and they really wanted this house. I said, okay, we'll buy it under this program, and I've already refied them out into an FHA because we got 2 years, got past the 2 year mark after they had the loan for 6 or 8 months. Okay. Pre-foreclosures, short sales. Short sale, we need 3 years for FHA, 4 years for conventional. Foreclosure, 7 years in conventional, 3 years for FHA. Yeah.
Bankruptcies, how many years?
If it's a Chapter 7, 4 years for conventional, 2 years for FHA.
Oh, only 2 years?
Yep. So there are going to be short sales. There won't be very many foreclosures because I just saw a figure that said 1.88% of the current homes right now are underwater.
Whoa.
1.88. Not even 2% of the homes out there that have mortgages on them are underwater. Because remember when everybody says, oh, the prices are going down, I'm waiting. Prices never went down. Appreciation kept happening at a high clip. So those homes are not, the only ones that are underwater right now and are at risk for short sale are the ones who have done DPA loans in the last 18 months or so. Because we haven't appreciated a lot in the last 18 months, and they were already underwater when they closed because they owed money on their down payment assistance. So I'll put these graphics on the Facebook page so you have them. Like I said, that one needs to be updated. I already submitted it for update. Hopefully I'll have it back next week. Oh, gifts. Gift of equity. Who can give gift of equity, Estrella? Who's allowed to give a gift of equity? To who? Who can they give it to?
Anyone.
No?
Only to the
relatives.
buyer.
Blood relative.
Oh, blood.
Brother, sister, mom, dad.
Only?
Yeah. So let's say your sister's really nice and she's going to sell you her house for way under value, right? Okay, that's a gift of equity. All right, so let's use an example. Let's say the house is going to appraise for $500,000. All right, she says, brother, you can have this house, and I'm only going to charge you $250,000 for it, right? Just because I love you so much. All right, brother says, sweet, I'm buying it. How much down does he have to put?
0, I guess.
Right, because it's a gift of equity. All right, what's the rule if you're going to purchase any house? If you go purchase a house, let's use builders. This is really good. Builder, you buy this house for $500,000. Appraiser is going to come in and says, shoot, it's actually worth $580,000 right now. All right, do you get to use that $80,000 in equity for your loan?
Yes.
No.
No, you can't use any.
The rule is purchase price or appraised price, whichever's lower for the first 6 months. That's what you have to use. You can't even refi within 6 months and get that $80,000 because you're stuck for 6 months.
Right.
So even though your home's worth $580,000 and you're putting 5% down, which was $25,000, you still have to put your 5% down. You didn't get to realize that equity yet. Gift of equity, you realize you're at 50% loan to value walking in. So you don't need to put any money down. You're getting an amazing rate because you have so much equity.
So what about if he sells it? There you go. That's different.
That's different. Yeah, since it's a second home and he hasn't lived in there, he's going to have to do something with 1031 and all that stuff. So that's a whole different game. Gift funds. FHA. Family members can give gift funds. All right. Conventional. Really, anybody close can give gift funds. FHA family members, church organizations, or employers can give you gift funds. Conventional, your best friend can give you gift funds. It's allowed. we're gonna need a letter saying, yeah, he is my best friend. You're gonna have to sign it, basically say, yeah, it's my best friend. So it's off of us and it's on them. It's actually someone they know and not laundered money or anything like that. If we're on a conventional deal and you're doing the sale for your son because he didn't pick another realtor to do it, luckily, loves you, can you gift your commission towards the down payment?
Yes.
Conventional loan.
I know commission can be
Closing,
given, but I don't know about conventional.
You're right. Conventional, you can't
You
gift
can,
your
but only on
commission.
FHA.
FHA, you can.
Yeah, I know about commission to
Yep.
be given, but
Yep.
to the.
Now, if you had a bunch of money in a bank account, you could still gift it to them.
FHA you can, yes.
But-
Are you checking where the money is coming from? Have to be seasoned
Love
or
this.
not?
They changed the rule lately.
Oh,
Okay? Know this, keep it in the back of your mind, and tell your buyers when they're buying and they're going to get gift funds. Tell the giftor to wait and wire it direct to title.
Oh,
If it goes direct to title through wire, we don't need to see the bank account.
oh, really?
The wire receipt just needs to match the bank account that they wrote down on the gift letter of where it was coming from.
Oh, it hasn't to be seasoned then?
Yeah. So we're not looking at the bank account. They're not investigating where the money came from. They're just making sure it came from a bank account that was put on the gift letter. If your gifter wires you the money in your bank account,
Oh, yeah, then it's.
now we need to go see the gifter's bank account for 2 months and see where that money came from.
For
okay.
2
I
months.
have a
Mhm.
client,
So,
he's moving back from Europe
Hmm.
and he wants to get a loan over here. He's an American,
Hmm.
passport and everything,
Yep.
but he lived last 3 years
Yep.
in Europe. So, what do you recommend? He should open account here and wire the money.
Yes, right
to
away.
the account and
Right away.
wait like 2 months?
Yep.
Or he can wire the
If you're
money
bringing
from-
money from out of the country, there are so many red flags, so it's better to put it in an account and season it.
So it has to be seasoned.
Yep, for 2 months. So if he gets it wired anytime this month and it shows up on the March bank statement as a deposit, so we have to see April and May's bank statements so they can buy and close in June. They can close as early as June because we only need to see April and May, and that money was already in there. So that's the seasoning.
So John, you don't investigate after 60 days? Yeah.
Shoot within 3 days. Unless Fannie or Freddie sees foul play or potential foul play and they do some weird investigation into the loan, us as the lender are done usually within the first 3 days of that thing closing. Sometimes they will check in and do a verification of employment after you close within that first 3 days just to make sure. And that's only if the underwriter kind of had a little red flag pop up. But if they don't suspect anything and everything looks good, they won't do anything. Like, they won't check your bank account. Like, let's say we're closing March 15th and we have January and February bank statements to show enough money in there to close. They're not going to want to see March or transaction history for March if they don't need to. So, as long as everything seems on the up and up with the underwriter and they don't turn it into fraud or get fraud involved, say, hey, I see a red flag, then usually we won't even check. They do check your credit. It's another soft check just to make sure there's no new inquiries, right? So when we say don't go out and buy cars or furniture or anything like that, as long as they have a credit card that's open, they can go buy stuff. You know, that's fine. They just can't open a new account. Otherwise, we have to get a letter saying that you opened it and find out how much is spent on it, and that is just another hurdle. So.
the gift ones, of course, they always ask me, my brother sent me this money, of course I can pay him back, right? It's supposed to be not pay him back, but what they do after is none of my business.
As long as the lender is not under the impression that it's loaned.
I don't know what they did, I don't know you after this.
As long as I didn't hear about it,
They don't? I don't know him after that.
as long as when they come to me and hook me up to a polygraph and ask me questions and I can honestly say, no, I did not know anything about it.
Come on, please.
That's it.
I never
Yep.
spoke.
Yeah.
Interested parties.
Yeah. Doesn't put you in the clear because they could come after you and check you out, but
I don't know anything, I never
Yeah.
asked. Don't ask, don't tell, right?
Yep, the rule on the gifted funds,
Okay,
it
are we
cannot
done
come
now?
attached.
My
Yep.
brain is now.
Yeah, we are done. I believe that
Okay,
was
my
it.
brain is going overboard.
Oh, income,
Oh, child
W-2
support.
self-employment, asset depletion if you have a ton of money in your savings account, which is mind-blowing if you do. We would divide that by 240 months, 20 years, and assign an income number to that. Any type of bonds, stocks, accounts like that, we could do a 10-year depletion. But that's just another high-level income. Other than that, yeah, that's about it. So, all right.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, great information. Thank
All
you.
right.
Great. Too much.
Enough to be dangerous.
Loan for like
No,
5
Yep.
years.
What if your mom
Oh, cash.
gave you money like, and now it's like, it's cash,
Mhm.
and your siblings
Mhm.
doesn't know.
Yeah.
Now, how can you put that in a, that's why I'm so scared on the bank.
The bank account will flag you for anything over $9,000 deposit.
I do.
So you'll slowly want to deposit it. Yeah.
I do that.
Yeah, just slowly deposit it once a week even. They're not going to raise any flags.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or if you have a couple different banks, right? If you have a couple different
Isn't it
banks.
the old ones before, they
Hmm?
just cash, they put all in there.
Here's the thing, go open 4 accounts, right? Go up 4 accounts with 4 different
Then I
banks
have
and put
SBA
5,000 in
account.
each one.
And this is Alzheimer now.
Yeah. So if you did 4 different accounts and you